Well, let's address the first of those questions. What is security? Well, once again, if you've paid any attention to the media, however you get it, online or newspapers or television, you probably know that the word security gets used very widely, right, in a lot of different contexts. Personal security, website security, information security. We even have a Department of Homeland Security. So one might ask, what do all those phrases have in common other than the fact that they all use the word security? That is, what is the common thread throughout them? Well, if you could answer that question, you might understand what the word security means. Well, maybe it means different things in those different contexts. So what does it mean in the context of computer security? Well, that's a little subtle, and that's a big part of what we're going to be talking about over the course of these lectures. But let's try to pin down what security means. Protection of assets against threats. Okay? In a way, that sort of begs the question, what assets? What is the nature of the threat? What does protecting against those threats mean? And do the protections which are appropriate for the different threats, are they different? Well, one would hope that they would be. Certainly in computer security, what assets are we protecting? Well, certainly we're protecting data, information. We also might be protecting software, okay? And one might wonder whether there's any threats to the hardware of a computer. It turns out that there's a well-known recent attack called the Stuxnet, which you may have read about, which actually was a computer security attack on pieces of hardware. And so even the hardware may be at risk from computer security threats, right? And so one might expect that the protections that you want to put in place against those various threats are going to be different in those different contexts. So let's think about this momentarily from the perspective of an individual. Suppose that you go to an online retailer like Amazon.com and you want to buy a book, say, right? So in the process of buying that book, you're going to take your personal information. You're going to create a login account, and you're going to take your personal information, including some pretty sensitive information like your credit card number, and send that to Amazon. Well, what things do you want to have happen over the course of that with respect to computer security? Of course, you want the transaction to be completed, and you want to be able to buy your book, and you want it to be sent to you. But from the perspective of security, what do you want to have happen? Well, here are some of the things you might want to have happen. You want authentication in the sense that you want to know that you're actually dealing with Amazon.com and not somebody who's phishing or pretending to be Amazon.com. On the other hand, they want to know that they're actually dealing with you, and the way they usually do that is by you deciding on a password and typing that in. Okay? Another thing you want is authorization. That is, you would like to be able to know that no one else can log into your account and buy books in your name and have them sent to them and charged to your credit card. Okay? Some other things you want, of course, are privacy of your data, right? Your credit card information, you don't want that to be disseminated to arbitrary people. And you also want the integrity of your data. Privacy of your data is about confidentiality, that is protecting anyone from seeing it. Integrity is about protecting anyone from changing it. So you wouldn't want, for example, someone to be able to change the address field on your account so that all your books get sent to them instead of to you, and you're paying for them. Availability. When you want to buy a book, you want to be able to log into Amazon's website and have that website available so that you can actually do it. Well, that may not be an issue that you have, but it certainly is an issue that Amazon has. They don't want to lose your business by having their website unavailable when you're trying to buy a book from them. And you want non-repudiation. That is, after you've purchased your book and they have charged your credit card, you don't want them to be able to come back and say, "Who are you? We didn't take your money. we don't know who you are. And so non-repudiation means the ability to keep someone from repudiating or denying that a transaction occurred. And there may be other things, right? But these are certainly some of the things that you want to have happen. So that's looking at it sort of from the perspective of an individual consumer. How about the broader perspective? Well, many times in the news you hear attacks on Sony or Google or something like that, and these attacks, may fall into a number of categories. For example, consider the first one, and this has happened very recently. A large corporation's system is broken into, and a lot of their data is stolen, including customer data, for maybe thousands or even millions of their customers. A serious breach of confidentiality, right? But that's what it is. It's confidentiality that we're dealing with there. Consider these other two attacks. A student hacks into the registrar's website and changes their grade. That may be something as a student that you might want to do, but certainly the university views that as a serious breach of the security. Notice that that is not a breach of confidentiality, right? Because the student already knows what their grades are. And it's not about them gaining information that they shouldn't have. It's about the possibility of changing information which is stored online. And so in computer security, we call that a breach of integrity rather than confidentiality. And then finally, this last one, an online retailer's website is overwhelmed with traffic from a malicious attacker, making it impossible for you as a legitimate customer to access the website and perform transactions on it. Well, notice that that's not about confidentiality, and it's not about integrity. It's about what we call availability. Those three things, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, are often viewed as sort of the big three of computer security. Three of the things that we really want to protect. But notice that they're very different. And perhaps the mechanisms which we use to protect confidentiality are going to be very different than the mechanisms we use to protect availability or integrity. Or there may be some overlap, right? So does that suggest to you, I hope it does, that the reason why security is somewhat difficult to define is that it covers a wide variety of different topics. And because it covers a wide variety of different topics, it involves a number of different mechanisms. And I'm hoping that over the course of this series of lectures, it will become clear to you that security really is about a bunch of different things which are loosely connected but related under that general topic of security. Okay, so security is becoming more and more prevalent as a problem. Why is that? Well, I can think of at least four reasons. One is because the world is becoming more and more connected. There's more computers in the world, and they're networked, and many of them are connected together, so there's a possibility that a hacker in Moscow or Kuala Lumpur might actually be able to log into the machine on your desk and do something that you wouldn't want to have happen. Okay, so 25 years ago that wasn't the case, and so this wasn't so much of a problem, but it certainly is today. There are also many valuable assets available online. You may do your banking online, for example, right? And that suggests that your banking information is accessible to anyone who can log into your account, which may be that same guy in Kuala Lumpur. And so that's an issue. There may also be the case that some industrial control system somewhere is accessible from that computer in Kuala Lumpur. And that may be bad if that person has malicious intent and can cause bad things to happen within that industrial context. Low threshold to access, what does that mean? Well, it means that almost anybody can get online these days. You don't have to be a computer scientist or an academic researcher. And so that means that there's a large pool of people out there who may have malicious intent. And finally, sophisticated attack tools are available. You don't have to be a computer hacker or a very well-educated bad actor to be able to do bad things online. You can go to Google and Google malware or purchase malware, and you may be able to find rootkits and all kinds of things that allow you to do very bad things. Just to close this out, I'd like to acquaint you with a few sobering facts. A study that was done in 2009 said that there were over 1 million new unique malware samples, which means viruses and worms and those kind of things, in each of the past 2 quarters. That was the first 2 quarters probably of 2009. Okay, so what does that suggest? It suggests that there's a lot of bad actors out there, and there's a lot of new malicious software appearing every day. And so we have to somehow protect against that. Here's another factor that you may want to consider, and that is if your machine becomes infected, unless you just happen to notice, or unless you have very effective antivirus software, it's liable to stay infected for a long time, for a long time, up to 300 days. That's disturbing. What that suggests is that there's a very large pool of infected machines out there which are accessible for use in botnets and other bad scenarios. Here's a couple more things. A study in 2008 showed that many websites out there, in fact a very large proportion of the websites, have severe vulnerabilities. And that means that they're susceptible to attack. And that means that if you log on to those websites, you potentially are susceptible to attack. Not in most cases, but perhaps in some cases. And so you have to be careful about what you do online. And this last one suggests that a very large percentage of the security problems that we have in the world are because people are just not being careful, right? This study by NSA showed, they looked at a number of Air Force systems, and they found that a very large percentage of them had security systems, of course, in place, but the security systems were not well configured to deal with the threats which were available. And that suggests that, not only is it necessary to have security in place, but it's also necessary that you understand how the security systems work and that you configure them appropriately. A couple of quotes from well-placed people within the government. The one that I found particularly disturbing was the second quote, which basically says that cyber attacks on the United States are, as this guy says, a challenge to our country's very existence. I believe the title of the article was Cyber Threats, an Existential Threat to the United States. That's a disturbing prospect. And that suggests why cybersecurity and computer security is such an important topic to understand and know something about. I think you're in the right place if that's your goal, to learn something about computer security, both for your own protection, for the security of the workplace in which you may ultimately work, and also for the overall security of the country. And so over the course of these lectures, I would like to give you some of the tools and some of the knowledge which are necessary to be informed citizens about computer security. And we're going to move on in our next lecture to talk about why security is particularly hard. Thank you.